Hey, thanks for tuning in to another edition of the Horror Debate. I am Jeff Rowdy J. Kieran, alongside me, as always, Michael Mandy.
And this week we're going to be reviewing from 1980, John Carpenter's The Fog, starring Jamie Lee Curtis.
Exactly.
And also Adrienne Barbeau.
Half the freaking Halloween cast was in this movie,
yes, they
man.
Are. And Tom Atkins was in Halloween 3. So
that's right.
A future Halloween person.
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, what amazes me about a film like this, and I just rewatched this again today, just because I knew we were going to be cutting this debate.
Yeah, we always rewatch films before we review them, the older ones.
What struck me immediately about this film is that how John Carpenter has this knack for doing a lot with a very little bit.
Yeah.
Okay? And making shots within the movie that make it look like it cost a ton of money.
Mm-hmm.
Where in reality, he probably didn't have much of a budget at all.
No, not much.
You know what I mean?
The film he made before this was Halloween,
yeah,
which was insanely low budget.
Right.
You know.
Well, he did say that
this one had a better budget than nothing.
He did say that after he cut Halloween, you know, and I guess it had gone. It was in theaters for a couple of weeks or whatever. And Deborah Hill, the producer, gave him a call and said, you know, man, this movie ain't flying. You know, Halloween's not flying. It's getting bad reviews.
Halloween took a long time to start building.
It's getting bad reviews. It's not making any money. We need to go with something else, okay? Mm-hmm. Then all of a sudden, this guy shows up on the set of The Fog and says, I want to offer you a 2-picture deal. I saw Halloween, and I guess what it was a review in the Village Voice, which is actually the same magazine that Paul Stanley got Ace Frehley from, right?
Yeah, it's the little New York magazine.
Yeah.
In San Francisco, we had something like that called BAM.
Yeah, exactly, Bay Area Music. And so the guy shows up and he offers him a 2-picture deal, and I guess he injects some life into The Fog, which you know is like I said, it looks like $1 million for being something that was done in 1980.
Yeah.
You know, it was shocking to me how fresh the story is, how fresh the acting was, even in this movie. You know, a lot of the older movies, Mike, you know I'm not a big fan of.
Oh, no.
You know that I think a lot of them blow hard, okay? But this one, you know, Jamie Lee's so gifted, and her mom is in the flick, and I mean, there's...
Janet Leigh.
Yeah, there's so much going for this thing, acting-wise. And Adrienne Barbeau, let me tell you, she was a hottie back in the day.
Oh, yeah, back in the day, she was a big deal.
Now, did I hear this right? Was she married to John Carpenter at one time? Okay, yes. I thought I heard that, yeah. Hey, man, he knows how to pick them, I'll tell you, you know. But back to the movie. I mean, I was actually really pleased. I mean, it had been a long time since I saw this original movie, and I had seen the remake not too long ago, and
which will be a future debate.
Which will be a future debate, and I was kind of like, you know, I was kind of digging that, you know, for what they did with it, but I didn't remember, you know, the original all that well, because like I said, it's been a long time. And I'm glad we went back, and I'm glad we did this, because, you know, the special edition is what I watched. It's a real nice transfer, and they didn't mess with it too much. You know, it's not like a complete remaster. It looks really good, but it looks old enough to be like that classic vibe. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Which I really appreciated. It was good stuff.
The other thing I like about John Carpenter films is he also does the music. And usually you would think a synthesizer and electronic music doesn't, you know, fit with a horror film. You know, you would think synthesizers, that's all for science fiction and stuff, but he makes that keyboard fit.
I noticed when there was an exciting scene that came up, and this stuck in my head, okay? When I don't remember exactly what scene it was, but I know there was something going on. It was like it was an attack of some sort, like one of the ghosts or something was coming after somebody, and it was like, you know, in Halloween, that dun, you're done. Yeah, exactly, right. It sounds like the Beavis and Butt, dun it, no. But you know what I mean? That kind of vibe. And it was almost like an inverted thing of that. You know, it was very similar, and it was like, wow, you know, it made me remember immediately, this is John Carpenter. You know, this is his style.
Or that pounding, it's not just a musical note, but it kind of sounds like someone's banging on a trash can far away. That
Yeah.
Wow.
We didn't really run down the plot, cool. Mike. Why don't you go ahead and nail that?
Well, the plot is 100 years ago in the small coastal town of Antonio Bay, something bad happened, and it's 100 years later, and the town doesn't quite know the whole story. They think they're honoring these great forefathers, but there's a dark secret that somehow brings... it's 100 years later, and the ghosts aren't happy, and they come to collect something.
You were saying that like was so sexy. I was like, almost thought I was listening to the trailer for a second there, dude. It was like
Barbeau's voice.
Wow.
Antonio Bay.
Yeah, wasn't she a trip? Yeah. She was a trip. I loved it.
Isn't that funny? Also, the star of the movie doesn't appear with anybody else in the whole film. She's by herself the
Right.
entire movie.
That's right.
With the one exception of her son in the morning when he says, "Mom, I found this cool piece of wood."
Right.
That's
right.
it. Otherwise,
right.
she's by herself.
Oh no! The housekeeper, was it?
Mrs. Kobritz?
Yeah, she was in a scene with her with the son. Yeah, inside the house. They were looking out the window. They were talking. I forget exactly what they were talking about, but the son was looking out the window. She was home, and the old lady was there too.
Yeah,
so,
she just walked in. Hi, okay, got
yeah. It wasn't like a big interaction thing, but there was a situation there where she was with other actors.
I mean, Adrienne Barbeau doesn't talk to Jamie Lee Curtis.
No,
doesn't talk to nobody.
no. But a movie nowadays with both Adrienne Barbeau and Jamie Lee Curtis, that's kind of a big deal. You didn't realize it back in the day. But now it would be a big deal. I want to mention Hal Holbrook. Who I'm not the biggest fan of overall. I mean, I respect the guy. He's done a lot of parts. I remember him from even like a lot of crime dramas and things like that.
He was in the Robert Redford film, All the President's Men.
Sure.
He wrote the one about. he was the guy who spilled the conspiracy about the Nixon Watergate.
Okay. Well, I know he's been. I know
Redford.
he's been in a crime drama that I just watched, and I can't think of what it was.
Him and Adrienne Barbeau were also in Creepshow.
There you go. That's right. So, but his style in this movie, he plays kind of like an inebriated like priest, right?
Yes,
he's kind of. I mean, he played it well. I'm just not the biggest fan. I think he's a little stiff sometimes. Hal is, and that's just his style. And I'm not so much. I'm not stiff at all. So that kind of like, it's just a little different vibe. But I totally respect the guy for what he's done. I mean, he's been in a ton of stuff.
And he also did a one-man show where he was Mark Twain.
Is that right?
He was amazing as Mark Twain.
Wow.
I've always liked Hal Holbrook. I mean, one of those, again, an older actor who's got a lot of character in his face, his voice, and he's been around.
Right. Oh, I know what he was in. Fletch Lives.
Yeah.
Fletch.
Yeah.
I love Fletch.
He's been in a ton of movies.
How did Fletch make its way into our Fog review? But anyway, I love Fletch. That's for another time.
All right.
But then let's back to the
Fog.
film. I like I said, man, this thing holds up so well. I mean, there's something about a Carpenter film inherently that over the years just seems to get better and better and better. And I'm totally into this thing.
And it doesn't look cheap, like you said.
No, it looked great. I mean, the seascapes of the little cove and everything, man. Everything was shot with class.
That's the Point Reyes Lighthouse, too, right outside of Bodega Bay.
Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Where Hitchcock filmed The Birds.
Very cool. Very
close
cool.
to Petaluma, which we were talking about.
Petaluma. Hey, yeah. Mike, this is the type of film that no matter how old it is, I mean, this thing holds up. You watch it today and you can appreciate just how classy. And I can't even think of another word for it. It's classy filmmaking.
Well, this film does not bang you over the head. It starts out slow, but the thing that I like about it is it gives a history. 100 years, and John Houseman at the very beginning telling the kids the story of 100 years ago, and the ship sank, and all and all that stuff. It sets it up. So then they're rediscovering, and I just love it. There's not a high body count.
Right, and that worried me. That kind of worried me. I was like, I mean, not that I need a high body count for to be a good movie, not at all. And this had a little bit more of that plodding pace,
right?
Which kind of concerned me at the beginning. I'm like, okay, can we get rolling here, But it's a story, and you're right, it has historical value in it, and you sit there and it flows well. You're not really bored at all. You get drug into the story pretty easily, Mike.
Yeah. Yeah, I like I said, if you're going in expecting like Rob Zombie's Halloween with shaky cameras and smashing and running and jumping, this is not it. You're going to be bored by this.
Yeah. No, I don't think so. I think people in the horror genre, if they're a little cerebral and they can appreciate classic filmmaking, I honestly think that this is done in such a way that I think everybody can appreciate it. Maybe not the young teenagers.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
But anybody from their 25 on up is going to appreciate this.
This is the kind of film you need to turn all the lights off, start at the beginning with no interruptions, and watch it to the end.
Speaking of that, Mike.
And at the end, I don't think you'll be going, wow, I was blown away. No, this film won't blow you away. But you're kind of, that was kind of cool.
Speaking of turning off all the lights and getting into the vibe, I just want to say I kind of did that with this, and I really thought, I mean, they 5.1 to the audio on this thing. I really thought it was very cool the way they did it, man. a lot of the scenes in this movie, you know, they're done, like you said, with Adrienne Barbeau in a room by herself with a microphone, you know, talking. But just even like the reverb from the room on her voice and things were done with such an open kind of sound field. It was really good. I was shocked. I was shocked that a movie from 1980 could make me sit there and go, wow, you know, it's extraordinarily clear. It sounds good. You can hear the reverb off the voices, like throughout the rear channel sometimes. It's very cool. I was into it, Mike. I love this film.
I do too.
I really think this is about as good as it gets from what I would consider to be the old days.
Yeah. Well, you know, John Carpenter gave himself a really good career with Halloween, The Fog, Escape from New York. Those three right there.
The trilogy.
Those three gave him 15 years at least extra on his career.
And
he's made a bunch of stinkers, but because of those three, people keep giving him another chance.
Yeah.
You know, I really want him to knock another one out of the park.
And here's a movie.
And The Thing. Can't forget The Thing.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. One of our favorites. Absolutely. But here's a movie that, you know, like I said, you have to sit down and watch The Thing and appreciate it for what it is.
And The Fog, too.
And what's that?
You just said appreciate The Thing for what
The Thing. No. The Thing is in The Fog. That's what I was saying. The movie The
Not
Fog.
the Kurt Russell film.
We got too many things going on here now. See, getting me all confused. No, but this movie is so good on so many levels, and it's classy filmmaking, and you people, like I said, you got to give it a chance. And like Mike said, don't jump into this thing going, okay, where's the next kill going to be?
Yeah.
You know, get into the story. It is a ghost story.
Yes, it's a ghost story. A lot of people talk in this movie, but notice a lot of the people are telling stories.
Yes.
The first one with John Houseman. When Tom Atkins is on the boat discovering the dead body on the boat, and he tells her, gee, when I was a young kid, my dad did this, da-da-da-da. He tells a story. Adrienne Barbeau is up by herself in the lighthouse. She's telling a story.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And this whole movie is about storytelling.
Okay, I got one little problem with the film, Mike.
Okay.
One small problem that I shouldn't probably even mention, but just because I catch these things.
Okay, go for it.
Because I watch things, you know, very closely.
Go for it.
You know when that water was coming out of that sign?
Yeah.
Okay, and it was like dripping onto the desk, and then it moved over to the tape recorder.
Uh-huh.
The tape recorder started reacting to the water before the water ever got to the tape recorder. Okay, so I just noticed that. It just bugged me a little bit. You know, I actually had to go back. I had to like rewind a little bit and go, because it started going, slowing down, and the water was like 2 inches from the freaking unit.
Well, because
it's like it was scared of the water. You know, it was like.
That's just it. The ghosts were in the room.
Yeah, okay. All right.
Yeah, okay, but yeah, kind of plot hole. What were the ghosts doing at 3 in the afternoon with the sunshine?
Right.
You know, that's a one, you know, like I said, this is not a perfect movie.
No. But it's darn close
because, you know, when water hits a tape recorder, it's just going to stop.
I was expecting it to spark, and that's why I kind of went back. I was expecting to see a spark or something and have it die.
But then remember, afterwards, the thing caught fire. She shot the fire extinguisher on it.
Yeah.
And it was clean again. No burns, no water, no nothing. So it was all kind of like her mind getting messed with. I think.
Yeah. Well, I got to tell you,
just they were trying to stick a scare in a movie that really didn't have.
And that didn't work. You know, and Carpenter even said, you know, there were a couple points in this film when they were shooting it, and they went back and looked at it.
Even the zombie on the table.
And he said, you know what, this isn't working. You know, it's not scary enough. And they went back and they reshot some things in this film. You know.
Yeah, they added a few things.
And I would not say, honestly, Mike, that this is a scary film. It could be a scary film for some people. It didn't really have that effect on me, but what it had was the atmosphere.
Yes.
This movie is all about atmosphere.
Yeah.
You know?
Mood and atmosphere and a bunch of old world, I don't want to say old world, but old style class.
Yeah. And I love that type of vibe. You know, the old, the dark, foggy nights, you know, that's what horror is about, man. That's, you know, these are staples, and that's what Carpenter was saying. He said, you know, we didn't want to go from Halloween and go into some other kind of serial killer thing.
Yeah, another slasher.
We thought about doing that, but he said, you know, he actually told a little story. He said, you know, we were in England, and speaking of him and Deborah Hill, and they were, you know, it's a typical day over there where it's really overcasty and nasty, right? And he noticed there was a fog bank, you know, right off the shore, and he said, God, you know, he said it was almost like it was pulsating, like it was alive, you know, like there was something in there. And immediately, ding, you know, he said, oh, I got the story for the next movie, and there they went. So, I mean, talk about stuff being as stupid as that and as simple as that. That's how he got it.
Yeah,
But,
plus, also, I like the small town feel.
yeah, absolutely.
You know.
If I had my druthers, that's where I would visit on a real creepy, like, cool vacation. You know, a place like that where it's like a cove or something, a small kind of creepy
Isolated town.
Yeah, small kind of creepy town with like really bad weather, fog, cold, nasty. See, I enjoy stuff like that. That's atmosphere, I mean, I love going to sunny place. Cabo's great, whatever. But don't dismiss this kind of thing, man. It's actually cool. If you're into these type of movies, you'll understand what I'm talking about. But I'm gonna actually give this movie 4 stars. Okay, I really, really liked it. I liked it a whole lot more than I ever remember liking it in the past. And like I said, it's been years since I've watched
Probably
this.
because back in the past you would watch like a Friday the 13th Part 5.
Exactly.
And then compare to this.
Exactly.
This is, a snooze fest.
But being older, being smarter, more wisdom has been gained. We understand the merits of this thing. And
the style.
I'll tell you what, right now, I would rank Carpenter up there, in the top 2. As far as the classic directors, this guy knows what he's doing. He knows how to make you feel the heebie-jeebies.
I think he might have forgotten because he's made stuff like In the Mouth of Madness.
Well,
Children of the Damned.
In a career,
Village of the Damned. I'm sorry.
in a career where you start out so hot, Mike.
Yeah, that's it.
How do you sustain that? I mean, some of the greatest writers, some of the greatest musicians, these you cannot sustain that. I mean, it's nearly impossible. I mean, some of our favorite artists of all time. We talk about the classic albums or the classic books, and somewhere in that middle period, they had that down period where they were trying different things, trying to be original and not kind of plagiarize their own work. Yep. So, but I give him total props, man. I think the guy's a genius. I really do.
Like I said, Halloween, Escape from New York, The Fog, and The Thing. I mean, right there, that's 4 awesome films.
Absolutely. I even enjoyed his Masters of Horror. I even enjoyed his Cigarette Burns. I thought that was really well done. I honestly did. I mean, I thought it was a little slow again, one of the slower kind of things, but it had enough there, and it kept me interested, Mike.
I was interested.
There's something about the way he does it. And it's almost indescribable. It's in the writing, but it's also in the shooting, the visual style, the characterization. It just all comes together for this guy, Well, at least it used to, and there are still, to this day, sparks of brilliance in his new stuff. So, Mikey,
right. Yep,
what are you giving it?
Definitely a 4-star film.
4-star film,
all right.
absolutely.
I'm Michael Mandy. He's Rowdy Jeff. We'll talk to you next week at the Horror Debate. Today we're going to be doing something kind of new. It's a little segment that we'd like to call the Rowdy Rant. Let us know what you think about it.
Well, and we've been thinking about doing something a little bit different, and for our listeners, because we call it the Horror Debate, and the reason we do that is because we usually have different points of view. We see kind of everything a little bit differently, and it makes for good conversation and good kind of pitter-patter back and forth.
To see both sides of things.
Both sides of things, and there's just things that are happening, in the horror industry, the horror movie industry, just around us in general, where it pertains to what we do, that maybe will bug us or rub us the wrong way.
And a lot of things you probably have figured out bug my friend Rowdy.
And I'm not afraid to tell you about him.
And here he goes. He's going to tell you about it.
So what we thought we would do is just kind of pick a topic occasionally and do this little thing, this little conversation, and we'll see if the listeners dig it. If you guys like it, let us know. If you think it sucks, let us know that too. If you think it's a waste of time, or if you think you want to hear more, email us and let us know. Our emails are available on our site, and just give us a holler and say, hey, we dug the Rowdy Rant, or shut Rowdy up. Okay, one of the two. So, one of the topics that we've all been thinking about, and I think that most people who go see horror films in theaters, in actual theaters, have run into this, in one time or another, and that is parents bringing their very young children to these movies. Mike,
we're not talking teenagers. I mean, 13-year-olds. No, I'm talking. This really infuriated me. I went to see the Rob Zombie film. And there was
Halloween, right?
Halloween, and it was like daycare night. And this was the 10 p.m. show. There were 3-year-olds there.
Yeah.
There were pacifiers.
Yeah. And I think the time that hit me, Mike, is when you and I went to go see Captivity, otherwise known as in the horror debate circles as Craptivity, right? Yeah. And this movie was it was billed as a torture film. It was billed as something along the lines of Saw. Okay? Now, I turn around in the theater, and I'm looking behind me, a few rows back, and there's this lady sitting there chewing her popcorn, and she's got these two young kids. The boy was much younger than the girl. I think the girl was probably right around 12 years old, and the boy looked like he was maybe 7 or 8. Okay? And that's pushing it. And he's not even looking at the screen. He's looking at the wall because he is so scared, of what he's seeing. And this mother, and I use that term extraordinarily loosely, is oblivious to what her kids are experiencing here and how uncomfortable he is about the whole thing. She's into the flick. And being a parent myself, and of course yourself being a parent, I mean, we can see kind of both sides of this, which is kind of why I thought this would be a fantastic way to start this little segment. Where do you stand on this, Mike? I mean, what's going on here? What is the mindset of these people?
Well, the mindset is they don't care. I mean, people don't realize movies can influence people. I mean, I don't know, is this what you want little kids to be seeing? Bigger than life with music and professional editing and, so you can get right close in there and seeing all this visceral stuff.
Right.
It's got to affect a kid.
It makes me ill. It makes me ill, and I allow my kids to see certain things. I allow them to see certain movies that I deem appropriate, and I have made mistakes. I'm not asking, everybody to be perfect, okay? But judgment, there is a line here, folks. And when you're going to a movie that is billed like Captivity was, as the torture or an abduction, torture, film. I don't think your 7 or 8 year old's number one going to be able to digest that, and it's going to scare the crap out of them.
Yeah, it's definitely going to affect them.
Yeah. So what we're trying to say here, my side of this whole thing is, I think, things should be put into place in these theaters to stop this. And I mentioned in my speaking of Rob Zombie's Halloween, I mentioned on my side of that debate that they had security guards at the entrance to the actual room where this was being shown. And if you didn't look 18 to 20, you were stopped at the door.
And that should be it.
I mean, you were stopped at the door, they demanded ID, and they were turning people away.
I mean, one of the problems, one problem is the parents, I don't know, or they're too cheap to hire a babysitter or something, I don't know. But the other thing is these movies, the Motion Picture Association of America rates these movies. The studios want to get an R rating. Now, some movies should be for adults. I mean, some movies are just too much for kids to handle. That's what the NC-17 rule was for, but unfortunately, newspapers and TV won't carry ads for those. So that's why they do anything they can to avoid the NC-17 to get the R, and plus they don't want to alienate the majority of their audience. I mean, the mom paid a ticket for the daughter and the little kid. I mean, so right there, their income for that day was in half.
Yeah, well, it really
that tells you how many people went and saw Craptivity that
day. It really comes down to the dollar. I mean, it comes down to the almighty dollar. And again, like you said, they don't want to leave people out because, let's face it, the demographic that they're aiming for a lot of these movies are the 15-year-old to 20-year-old set.
Which I'm fine with the 15-year-olds. To me, my problem is the 4-year-olds.
Yeah, but even so, I mean, I took, and this is a totally honest thing for me. I took my oldest son, who is now 14, and my second oldest son, who is now 12, and I brought 2 of their friends who are exactly the same age as they are, both brothers, again. And when we were watching Halloween, I was ashamed of myself.
Yeah.
I was ashamed of myself that I brought him to that because, and that was my fault. And I should have known that Rob Zombie was going to take this like way over the top, right? Sexually, violence-wise, everything. But in my mind, I was
not to criticize Rob. He's doing his job.
Exactly. It's not his fault at all.
Right.
I should have known better. But what happened was I was thinking about how much they enjoyed the very original movie, and I was like, wow, they would probably dig seeing this. But then I was seeing the full frontal shots in the magazine that Ken Foray had, right, when he's in the stall, and to be honest with you, I mean, one of the kids looked over at me, and I said this in the debate. He, as honest as I can be, looked over at me and said, Jeff, this is a This is a porno. You know, I mean, and I was looking at him like, I'm sorry. You know, I am sorry. I felt guilty. You know, and I don't like to feel that way. This is entertainment, you know? I mean, come on. But the honest truth is that you're right. I mean, there's got to be some kind of something put in place. I mean, I don't want to rant on this all day about this, but
and I don't want the movies studios to think they need to censor themselves.
No.
I want them to go nuts. Just let us know you're going nuts.
We need to stop the entry of the children. The parents have got to say, you know, this is not appropriate for my child.
Yeah.
And, you know, I get sick and tired. I am so sick and freaking tired of video games being blamed for the world's problems. Okay? And you don't hear the Congress and all these fools that are saying that if you play Grand Theft Auto, you're going to run out and blow somebody's head off and jack their car. You don't really hear them talking too much about the movies now, do you, Mike?
No.
You don't hear that in the news. You know why they target video games, Mike? Because it's the big money business. It's because now video games are eclipsing the box office. They are taking over because they're interactive and the kids are digging it. Take that, Roger Ebert. They are taking over. And I think he knows that. And I think that's one of the reasons he was so upset with Clive Barker about, you know, his point of view. They're taking over. You know, but the thing is that, you know, video games, I could see if a kid was exposed to nothing but violent video games, how he might tend to have a violent edge. But you cannot tell me that playing one of these games is going to make a kid go out there and jack a car and beat up an old lady. It's just, there's something wrong with the child to begin with.
And that's a debate. That's a rant for a different
That's a rant for another time. But I'm just saying, you don't hear it about the movies enough. And in my opinion, you're sitting there being force-fed, okay? You're sitting there being force-fed whatever the director had envisioned to give the audience. And I think that's just as damaging as playing a video game. Or, you know, there's not one that's more damaging than the other, in my opinion. You know, so what we're saying is something's got to stop.
Yeah.
The buck stops here.
You know, we don't want the studios to tone down horror movies. We don't think horror movies are the problem of society. But you know what? Parents need to become responsible parents.
Absolutely.
Certain things are not for kids. Certain things are for adults.
We love this genre. We wouldn't be doing this if we didn't. We love to see this genre flourish. And, of course, we love to see huge box office numbers when it comes to these movies coming out. We love to see success where success is due. And, unfortunately, the demographic, like I said, for a lot of these films is that really kind of young, tender age of, 14, 15 and up, right?
Yep.
But our main complaint is that, you have very impressionable minds from the ages of, 6, 7 on up into those teenage years. And if this is what they're being force-fed, and if mommy and daddy are going in liking it, what's going on here? What are we teaching the values? I mean, there's so much sex. There's so much over-the-top violence. Being a parent myself, I do get concerned about this. And don't think that I let my kids watch just whatever they want. It doesn't happen in my house.
No.
Okay? As much as we love the films, I always see them first. And then I deem, and my wife and I should say, as to what is appropriate. And sometimes we don't even see eye to eye. Sometimes I'll say, you know what, I don't think that's appropriate for them to watch. And she'll say, I think it's okay. And sometimes vice versa. But that's what it's about, is discussing within your family. Within your core, if this is appropriate for your child or not.
Yeah. But, rated R means under 17, must have a responsible parent. I think that's what the word should be.
I totally agree.
When you're standing in line at the 10 p.m. showing of Halloween, and you've got kids with pacifiers in their mouths, that's not responsible parenting.
Not responsible parenting in the least. I mean, we love the genre, and we love people to come out and see these movies, but just like anything else in life, there's moderation. And moderation has to happen, or you end up with a big mess.
All right. And that's this edition of the Rowdy Rant.